Hey guys, what's going on? So today on Madam V's TV, we're talking about Lucille Ball. Now, before I get into this video, I am not sure what is true or false in this video. I take the life, gossip, and tea from my findings online, in books, magazines, word of mouth, and I tell you some tales with some added tea. This is all for entertainment purposes. Now let's get into this video. So guys, this is Miss Lucille Ball. Okay, so we're going to talk about her today. You know how we do it. We're going to start off first with the tales of her life story. And then at the end, we're going to give you some tea on this Hollywood starlet. Let's get into Miss Lucille Ball. Lucille Desiree Ball was born on August 6th, 1911. And she was an American actress, a comedian, as well as a producer. She was born in Jamestown, New York, at 60 Stewart Avenue, and she was the daughter of Henry Durrell Had Ball, a lineman for Bell Telephone, and Desiree Evelyn Ball, better known as Dee Dee, and she was a housewife. Her family belonged to the Baptist Church, and her ancestors were mostly English, but a few were Scottish, French, and Irish. Now, Ball's father's Bell Telephone career frequently required the family to move during Lucy's early childhood. They moved from Jamestown, where Lucy was born, to Montana, and later to Trenton, New Jersey. In February of 1915, while living in Michigan, Lucy's father died of typhoid fever at the age of 27 when Lucy was only 3 years old. And also at that time, Dee Dee, Lucy's mom, was pregnant with her second child, Fred Henry Ball. She was stated to say that she recalled little from the day her father died, except for a bird getting trapped in the house, which caused her a lifelong of ornithophobia, which is, of course, a fear of birds. Now, at this time, Ball's mother returned to New York, where her maternal grandparents helped raise Lucy and her brother Fred in Celeron, a summer resort village on a lake, and their home was at 59 West 8th Street, and it was later renamed to 59 Lucy Lane. Ball loved Celeron Park, and it was a popular amusement area at the time. All right, so 4 years later, after Henry Ball's death, Dee Dee Ball married Edward Peterson. While they looked for work in another city, Peterson's parents cared for Lucy and Fred. Ball's step-grandparents were Swedish couple who banished all mirrors from the house except one over the bathroom sink. When Lucy was caught admiring herself, admiring her beauty in it, she was severely chastised for being too vain. She later said that this period of time affected her so deeply it lasted 7 or 8 years. Now, in her early career, in 1925, Ball was only 14 years old. She then started dating a guy named Johnny DeVita, a 21-year-old local hoodlum. Now, her mother was very unhappy with this relationship and hoped that the romance, which was unable to be influenced at the time, would just burn out and die. After about a year of her mother trying to separate them by exploiting Lucille's desire to be in show business, the family's meager finances, then in 1926, she then became enrolled in the John Murray Anderson School for the Dramatic Arts in New York City, where Bette Davis was a fellow student. Now, Ball later said about that time in her life, all she learned was in drama school was how to be frightened. Now, Ball's instructors felt she would not be successful in the entertainment business and were unafraid to directly state this to her. She was criticized very harshly, and Ball was determined to prove her teachers wrong and returned to New York City in 1928. And that same year, she began working for Hattie Carnegie as in-house model. Now, Carnegie ordered Ball to bleach her brown hair blonde, and she complied. Of this time in her life, Ball said, Hattie taught me how to slouch properly in $1,000 hand-sewn sequin dress and how to wear a $40,000 sable coat as casual as a rabbit. Now, in 1932, when she was 21, she moved back to New York City to resume her pursuit of an acting career, where she supported herself by again working for Carnegie and as the Chesterfield Cigarette Girl. She was using the name Diane Belmont. She started getting chorus work on Broadway, but it did not last long. Ball was hired, but then quickly fired by the theater impresario Earl Carroll from his Vanities, and by Florenz Ziegfeld Jr. from a touring company of Rio Rita. After an uncredited stint as a Goldwyn Girl in Roman Scandals, Ball moved permanently to Hollywood to appear in films. She had many small movie roles in the 1930s as a contract player for RKO Radio Pictures. But her first credited role came in Chatterbox in 1936. She also appeared in several Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers RKO musicals. In 1935, she played in Roberta as well as Top Hat. In 1936, Follow the Fleet. And in 1937, Stage Door, one of my favorite movies ever, if I must say so. And as she was recording a particular film in 1940, Ball met Cuban-born band leader Desi Arnaz. She was actually filming the Rodgers and Hart stage hit Too Many Girls. They connected immediately and eloped that same year on November 30th, 2 months after that film opened up. Now, Desi was drafted into the Army in 1942, and he was classified for limited service due to a knee injury. He stayed in Los Angeles, organizing and performing USO shows for wounded GIs brought back from the Pacific. Now, Ball had filed for divorce in 1944. However, she and Arnaz reconciled, precluding the entry of a final decree. I wonder what was up during that time to make her do that. Let's keep going. On July 17th, though, in 1951, less than 3 weeks prior to her 40th birthday, Ball gave birth to her first daughter, Lucy Desiree Arnaz. A year and a half later, she gave birth to their son, Desiderio Alberto Arnaz, known as Desi Arnaz Jr. Before he was born, I Love Lucy was a solid ratings hit, and Ball and Arnaz wrote the pregnancy into the show. Do you guys remember that? I know you do if you are a lover of I Love Lucy. Ball's necessary and planned cesarean section in real life was scheduled for the same date that her television character gave birth. Now, back then, CBS insisted that a pregnant woman could not be shown on television, nor could the word pregnant be spoken on air. Like, really? And after approval from several religious figures, the network allowed the pregnancy storyline, but insisted that the word expecting be used instead of pregnant. Okay. Now, the episode aired on the evening of January 19, 1953, with 44 million viewers watching Lucy Ricardo welcome little Ricky, while in real life, Ball delivered her second child, Desi Jr., that same day in Los Angeles. And this birth made the cover of the first issue of TV Guide for the week of April 3rd through the 9th, 1953. I actually remember this issue. Now, by the end of the 1950s, Desilu had become a large company, causing a good deal of stress for both Lucy and Desi. On March 3rd of 1960, a day after Desi's 43rd birthday, and one day after filming the final episode of the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour, Ball went and filed papers in Santa Monica Superior Court claiming married life with Desi was a nightmare and nothing at all as it appeared on I Love Lucy. Honey, the tea. Now, I'm going to come back to that. But on May 4th, 1960, they did divorce. However, until his death in 1986, Arnaz and Ball remained friends and often spoke fondly of each other. Now, her real-life divorce indirectly found its way into her later television series, as she was always cast as an unmarried woman, each time a widow. She then remarried Gary Morton, 13 years her junior, and they were married on November 19th of 1961. They had homes in Beverly Hills and Palm Springs, California, and also in Snowmass Village, Colorado. And they were married until her death on April 18th of 1989. Now, on her death, Ball was admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles after experiencing chest pains. She was diagnosed with having an aortic aneurysm and underwent surgery to repair her aorta and a successful 7-hour replacement. But shortly after dawn on April 26, Ball awoke with severe back pain, then lost consciousness. She then died at 5:47 a.m. Pacific Standard Time at the age of 77. Now, doctors determined that Ball had succumbed to a ruptured aortic aneurysm not directly related to her surgery. A greater incidence of aortic aneurysm is seen in cigarette smokers, and Ball had been a heavy smoker most of her life. She had 3 memorial services, and she was cremated, and the ashes were interred in Forest Lawn, Hollywood Hills Cemetery in Los Angeles, where her mother was also buried. And in 2002, Ball and her mother's remains were reinterred at the Hunt family plot at Lakeview Cemetery in Jamestown, New York, in accordance with Ball's wishes to be buried near her mother. Her brother's remains were also interred there in 2007. So that was the tale of Lucille Ball. Now we're going to talk about the oh so juicy tea, honey. So they did say that Lucille Ball didn't have a very happy childhood at all. Although Lucille Ball was known as a comedian during her days, she didn't come from a happy family or a happy childhood experience. After losing her father, when she was only around 4 years old, Ball's mother did remarry, like I stated, and the preschooler went to live with her stepfather's grandparents. As Ball tells it, they had a very strict and old country ideas towards parenting, and she continued telling the Saturday Evening Post they treated other children the way I wanted to be treated, but not me. They did not treat me the same way. They did it to discipline me, but for me, it was the wrong way to bring a child up. Okay? So she was said to say that about her upbringing, and it greatly affected her. It greatly affected her image, the way she felt about herself. They were a little too strict. And this is what led her to the power of humor. She was stated to say, it gave me a feeling of frustration and of reaching out and trying to please others. She did explain that, and she found herself quickest and the easiest way to do that was to make people laugh. Fortunately, the principal at Ball's school saw the urge in her and ensured that she was cast in school musicals and plays. And her step-parents also, be it how strict they were, encouraged her to pursue the arts as well. Now, we're going to talk about when she was 16 and how her life changed. Okay, so on July 4th, 1927, Lucy's life would change in an instant. On that day, Ball's grandfather was teaching her brother Freddie how to use the gun he had just purchased for him. Now they set up a tin can target in the backyard. They set everything up, but the problem was Freddie was about to turn 12, and he purchased him a real 22 caliber rifle. It was actually a birthday present from grandfather to grandson. Worst mistake. So they say they was in the backyard, and Freddie, Lucy's brother, was aiming at the target or the tin cans. But an 8-year-old little boy who was a friend and neighbor of Freddie wound up in the path of the damn bullet. And while he didn't die, the bullet severed his spinal cord and paralyzed him for his entire life. Now, the boy's family, you already know, later sued Ball's grandfather for everything he was worth. They took the house and the furnishings. And Ball's mom, Lucy's mom, had worked oh so hard for everything that she had after her father passed. She was stated to say that my grandfather never worked again. She added that it took the heart out of him when he was sued. But if you think about it to today, you never buy a child a gun. Now, y'all know that Lucille Ball, even high-powered she was actually in the beginning a starving artist searching for work. Now, y'all know that pregnancy wasn't talked about at all, and she was very open to pregnancy loss. She was one of the first ones known for appearing on television while visibly pregnant. Y'all remember that? In fact, she was one of the first women to ever do that. At that time, it was taboo, like nobody wants screwing. And it was to the point where she and Desi Arnaz had to get permission from the network to acknowledge the pregnancy on screen. They also needed a priest. They needed a minister, a rabbi, which sounds like the makings of a bad joke, to sign off on each episode. Like, really? What's lesser known about Lucy is that she was also candid about having a miscarriage, which occurred just after she and Arnaz dreamed up I Love Lucy. In fact, one of the reasons they took their photo show to vaudeville was to help her cope with the loss of that child. And Ball, by no means wasn't shy about discussing her pregnancy or her birth experience either. She was known to say, "Our first child, Lucy, had been born by cesarean section." Now, that was taboo, not talked about. And little Desi was delivered cesarean too. If you know your baby is going to be a cesarean baby, it helps you call your shots. She was stated to say that, even though it was one of those hush-hush moments in Hollywood. Now, another thing is, in real life, Lucille Ball was quite serious, even though she was one of those comedians. Now, if you've ever watched I Love Lucy, you're likely to think that Lucille Ball was just as much of a cut up off stage as she was on the stage. No, sir. She was full of contradictions, which is always for a good story. She was full of a contradiction. She was a funny actress who couldn't tell a joke and was quite serious in real life. Maybe she was one of those people that when she spoke, it seemed funny, but she was actually being serious. I know a lot of those people. She was very solemn as in a person. Ball didn't necessarily want the clout that she had in Tinseltown. She became one of the most successful businesswomen in Hollywood, yet she was never comfortable with her own power. Now, the tea with her and Vivian Vance, who played Ethel Mertz, and William Frawley, who played Fred Mertz, were also fixtures in the pioneering comedy I Love Lucy. But as rumor has it, baby, they say that Ball and Vance had quite the rivalry on set and allegedly couldn't stand each other. Then on other accounts, you hear that Lucy actually adored Vance. So I don't know. I told y'all this is a gossip channel. And Lucille Ball wasn't interested in drugs, but she was a chain smoker, honey. If you never caught an episode of I Love Lucy, you may be shocked at how much smoking happens on the show. In fact, Lucy and Desi even did commercials promoting cigarettes for Philip Morris, as they sponsored I Love Lucy for a few years as well. Ball was a smoker in real life and a heavy smoker too, which at the end caused her death. However, that's the only substance that Ball indulged in, as getting drunk or high just didn't appeal to her, only smoking cigarettes. She was stated to say, honey, here goes some tea. The first time I was around marijuana, I wondered why someone was passing me the cigarette, right? He had just smoked. I've never tried it. And when she drank alcohol, Ball said she either got sick or fell asleep. That's me all day, honey. And she wasn't a fan of a heavy hitter, what they call morphine and Percocet and all that. She wasn't a fan. They didn't make her feel the best way, and she did not like the way it made her feel. She said, I'm allergic to morphine and codeine, and I can't take any of those things because they work in reverse. The eyes won't close. Now let's talk about her and Desi, right? Y'all know I can't get off of here without that tea. So Lucille Ball is stated to say that Desi Arnaz frightened her. Now, they're easily one of the most iconic couples in Hollywood, and they actually normalized interracial marriages in television. Ball was Caucasian and Arnaz was Cuban American, honey. She was stated to say he asked me for a date on that night when they met, and pretty soon they were married not too long after. She said that marrying Desi was the boldest thing that she had ever did. Now, the marriage of Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball lasted around 20 years or so, with its dissolution mostly due to his love for alcohol and extramarital affairs. So he was a cheater, huh? Now, even though Desi wasn't exactly the best husband in the world after his marriage to Lucy, they became the best of friends once they were divorced. She was recorded to state that his second wife was a very nice girl, and they sometimes met up on social occasions, but they were always friends after they divorced. Now, again, I told you guys she married again to a Gary Morton in 1961, who she described as a naturally moderate person. She stated that he doesn't think the grass is greener elsewhere. Y'all know that underlining tone. He's not a workaholic or a playaholic. Y'all get it? And he appreciates his home. Desi seemed like a true whore, honey. Desi, she was stated to say, was a very generous man who built many houses but never lived in any home. Y'all pay attention to that speech there. I could read between the lines with that. Ball and her second husband were married for 28 years, again until her death in 1989. And Morton died 10 years later. Now this right here really appeased me. This is some tea tales for your ass too. Now Lucille Ball, did y'all know she is a descendant of those accused of the witchcraft in Salem, Massachusetts? Honey, let's get into it. Now, in the late 17th century, the notorious Salem witch trials were conducted in Salem, Massachusetts. It was the most deadliest hunt for so-called witches on American soil in history, with a body count of 19 women and men, as well as 2 dogs. I don't understand that, but anyway. So what does this history have to do with Lucy? Well, as it turns out, Ball and several celebrated Americans were descended from the accused witches. Now, other celebs include Clara Barton and Walt Disney, which makes you wonder who else was lost to the hysteria of those paranoid proceedings with the witchcraft trials. Now, what I want you to do now is watch a little short with me. It's a small snippet of Lucille Ball in her zone. Hold on. Let's watch together.
A lot now, and I'm pushing Stone Pillow at the moment, so I'm really going. Yeah. Thank you. Thank
you. Why did you wait so long to do a dramatic role?
I don't know.
You know?
Because I didn't get a script that I liked. The scripts are kind of scroungy, you know. Yeah. And I had an image of sorts that I personally liked, and I certainly don't want to just go out and do anything with 4-letter words and things that I don't dig. I took this script because I wanted to work with a great director, and I found one, George Schaefer.
Thank you guys for joining me on Madam V's TV on the details of Lucille Ball. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and support my channel. It'll be greatly appreciated. And I'll be back with another tea tale. Many blessings to you. Bye.